Welcome back, everybody, to EMEA's last chance qualifying tournament for the World Championship of Legends of Runeterra. We are now already at the round of 16, and we are ready to recap some of the action that just happened in the round of 32 and that got us here. I think the first replays we have are of Broken Ball versus Pat, the Italian showdown. What did you see here after that menacing Jinx rocket was played by Pat?
Yeah, this is sort of the game-deciding turn here against Broken Ball. This Jinx rocket completely demolished the board. Broken Ball elected to use that form-up to protect the Duran Sculptor, and then I believe we ended up going for a concede here. When the match, in theory, technically wasn't over, although it was very close. Depending on the number of actions available, Broken Ball potentially had a chance to turn it, but they did lose most of their board here.
Yeah, if Pat's draw would have bricked, maybe there was still a little glimmer of hope, but losing the MF is very frustrating, of course, while the Jinx stays alive. But that was it for the first game. And the second game, Pat going for that huge Riven swing. A lot of foresight again on Pat's in Pat's shoes, realizing this is probably a situation where Broken Ball doesn't have great answers, going for that early damage, which set up this beautiful Overwhelm development with the Overwhelm fragment in hand, with another Riven champion spell in hand, so a lot of potential backup for pushing more damage, and Broken Ball just not having the blockers here, only one wall up, no way of dealing with this onslaught, and that was it. Pat advanced, Broken Ball did drop and leave us here. But in this replay, perfect use of Hex Obliterator, right?
Yeah, we mentioned it time and time again. The Obliterate means it's not a death. It doesn't go into the death pool, so the Chrono Break doesn't bring it back. And we saw a great match there between Ghost Driver and Never Walk Alone very shortly at the end of that match, where we saw Never Walk Alone take it and put themselves through into the next part of their bracket. And speaking of brackets, we are now going to go have a quick gander here as to where everyone has been getting here. And we see here Sugon Dezizi versus Never Walk Alone, and Calamari versus Cope Dagger here in the top 16.
Okay, and I think we do have to mention here that Sugon Deez is in fact Hash, a very well-known and respected tournament player from the lore community, just decided to make our lives miserable here by renaming their account to Sugon Deez, and therefore gonna be showing up in this bracket. But on the other half of the final 16, in the other quarter rather, Aftermath Arachnid is still in here representing the UK, gonna go up against FXXF, and we see Go, aka Coupon, which is another nice new name that you just mentioned for this player. And our featured match coming up shortly, Timmy to Timid here, gonna be going up against a French ladder legend Shampoo, who's also very good and solid in tournament play. High profile match there for sure, and we see Pat again, who just advanced against Broken Ball earlier on.
Yeah, up against Rono Arc. Yeah, this is going to be a fantastic series of matches. Again, a reminder to everyone tuning in, only the top two will qualify here. So as we look at these brackets here, we've got Red Monty against Body Snarl. Again, Body Snarl player never played a standard open, making it all the way here in their last chance qualifier, might end up making it all the way to Worlds. As I mentioned before, the top two that make it through today are the only people going through to Worlds. If you lose, that is this year's Worlds run over. So all to play for here to get those last couple of spots.
And it's such a weird dynamic, right? Because in any other card game tournament, you are already happy to get into the top 16. And all of the other opens, you were already happy to have accumulated some Runeterra points, to have a bit of prize money in your bank secured already. But this tournament is special. It is go big or go home. You either make it to the grand finals or you go home empty-handedly and just with a little bit of bragging rights about, oh, I was so close, but not quite there. And that's why it's still such a high-pressure situation for all of these players.
You had all year to show your consistency. You had all year to get those points. And now for everyone who was unable to do that, or maybe didn't have time, or for whatever reason, this is their last chance to play well, make no mistakes, and try and make those last couple of spots.
And we are ready to jump into the next matchup. The decks are ready here. We are going to be looking at Timmy to Timid's decks first. Another run at Echo Jinx, a bit of a different build than the previous one, playing 2 Rites of Negation, no Avenging Vastaya. But this is mostly a very streamlined list with a lot of 3-offs. The more or less optimal version has already been solved, and that's what Timmy is bringing here.
Yeah, I do like the double rights. Maybe just sort of a tech pick, maybe expecting a bit more control. But we haven't actually seen much of it actually today. The double right would help in the matchups with Karma Sets. And we see the next deck is this Riven Gwen. Again, this is the deck that came in sort of a bit more recently, and it's just been tearing the tournament scene apart. Very, very strong deck. It's got the Overwhelm package with Riven, the weapon package as well, and the Gwen hallowed combo that works in tandem with Riven, doubling up the attack bonuses.
And this is an even more aggressive version than we've seen earlier on. No Vengeance and triple Opulent Foyer, double Noxian Fervor, making space by cutting 2 hate spikes, only playing 1 hate spike. And the third deck, another take on Teemo Kale. I did not even notice that this deck had an upspring recently, but I love to see it. I hope this goes through this time. I hope this won't get banned. The idea here is to swarm the board early on, go for early board control with all of those Yordles, with Bandle Cities, unit spam tools, and then eventually finish the game with a Jolani the Bloodweaver, transforming everything into huge Overwhelm units.
And we also see the Karma set. Again, this is one of the control decks I was expecting to see more of today. And it's showing itself here with Shumpo. We saw it a little bit in the previous matches round as well. Very strong control deck here in the meta. It's very much I would say, it's like 50-50 into most things in the meta right now. So it's just a very sort of a safe pick in terms of a control deck. And we're seeing 2 copies of 9 lives. It's, again, the tech choice there.
9 lives, allowing some burst speed development, blockers or attackers. But moving on, after seeing a control deck, we now see a very aggressive board swarm aggro-oriented deck. Jinx with no cannon option again, very similar to a list we saw a bit earlier on. Triple Promoter, triple Squeaker. Generally very streamlined, almost only 3-offs with 1 copy of Mariam Caretaker.
Yeah, it's just a very solid discard aggro deck, and leading us up to the third deck. So Shumpo here going for 3 different deck styles instead of like triple control, triple mid-range. They've got sort of a mid-range, an aggro, and a control list. Just sort of spread their styles across these 3 decks. Jackson again, we've spoken about a number of times. However, this one's running a single copy of Buried in Ice, which has been a tech choice in the past for this list, but has been cut in most recent times. Most likely, you bring that when you're expecting a lot of the mirrors. Yeah,
what's interesting about deck building on Shumpo's side is also that the aggro deck Jinx is very streamlined on almost only 3-offs, while the 2 slower decks, the mid-range and the control deck, had a lot of 1 and 2-offs tagged into them that just make the opponent's life more miserable in a longer drawn-out game, because it gets more and more likely that you draw your offbeat situational 1 and 2-offs. So very curious to see what bans are gonna come in here. Did you already theory craft a little bit in this specific matchup?
So Karma set in general should be okay into Jinx Echo, but I don't know how well it fares into the Bandle Swarm. Similarly, I think the Bandle Swarm should do well into discard aggro, and it's going to be tough, right? So it's like one deck beats another deck, and then the other deck that's left open beats the other one, sort of thing happening here.
Yeah, I also don't see any very obvious ban choices here. The matchup spread is very interesting, mostly because Shumpo elected to go for a very, well, what do we call it? A lineup that seems a bit all over the place on first sight. But all 3 decks are very strong on their own and have interesting matchup spreads. And I do believe Shumpo is very, very proficient at piloting them. Shumpo, I've faced a lot, mostly on the ranked ladder, and extremely good at playing those control decks or control/combo decks like Karma said, and really shines in drawn out matches.
Yeah, I suspect if you're on Timmy's side, you're more likely going to ban the Karma set or the Jack Swan. You're most likely leaving discard up. In theory, you should be okay into that. You can either go tall with Gwen Riven and just slam through them a lot of the time, or you can go wide with your Echo Jinx and your Teemo Bandle.
I agree with you. Shumpo's Karma deck is the only one that has very, very effective defensive options. That being said, there's a case to be made for banning Jax Ornn because it's the only one with access to freezes. And especially in the Riven deck, you really don't want to face a freeze. At the same time, against Ionia deck, you can also get stunned, you can get your big units recalled, you can get them straight up removed by the PNZ portion of their deck. It's a bit of a pick your poison here.
Yeah, it really depends on, I guess, what these players have sort of predicting people to bring. It's I think this is probably one of the harder pick bans of the day that we've seen, because of how close a lot of these matchups actually are.
I just hope to see that Teemo deck in action. That is my only wish for today. Please don't ban a Champo.
That is potentially an option. I can see the Gwen Riven being the target here to be banned.
That's a bit surprising to me because I think, like, on Champo's side, you're like the only deck that really doesn't have answers to Gwen Riven is the Jinx deck. So no matter what gets banned, you'll at least have one good matchup into the deck.
I mean, technically, the Jinx deck can just throw a lot of its removal at Gwen and Jinx. There aren't many health buff options. So in theory, yeah, it has options there. It's not like as straight set as we think. But again, yeah, I feel like the matchup spread is pretty much fairly even across the board. Maybe there's slight different opinions on the player side. I mean, if we just look at pure stats, it's going to be quite even, but players will have their own opinions as respect of what they want to choose. And yeah, Echo Jinx being banned here.
Echo Jinx being banned, Gwen Riven goes through,
Yeah,
and the Karma deck does get banned after all. That means the Teemo deck slides through. I am joyful to see this. And yeah, first time we see this in action today. And let's see what the first matchup of the day is going to be. I can imagine that Timmy would like to not play the Gwen deck against the Ornn deck. Ornn does get picked, and it is going to be running into the Gwen deck. Very interesting to see here. We saw for a split second that Champo had a Three Sisters in the opening hand, but mulliganed it away.
Yeah, super, super interesting there. I mean, Three Sisters is one of those cards that's going to keep you alive. However, though, if you didn't have any other units or anything, you probably do want to still throw it away just to find something to stem the early damage in the first couple of turns.
Good point. I think that was exactly the reasoning. It was like, okay, if I would have one or two units to play early, then I can greed and keep the Three Sisters from later on, but not in a situation here. We do see the interesting tech choice, Buried in Ice, come through. We also do not see a block with the Jax, even though Sky Splitter is in hand, but that just means that Champo wants to keep on developing more units on curve. Innovative Blacksmith coming down here.
Yeah, just going to slightly heal while also keeping Jax alive. The Blacksmith sets up the combat cook for the next turn. Your overall attacks are pretty good if you're on Shumpo's side, and the Harsh Winds draw is fantastic here for Shumpo. That's exactly what they need.
Also, Combat Reel was a very good pickup as a weapon, because right now, like, you swing in, you only have one mana available. You can't really play combat tricks or represent combat tricks. But with the Combat Reel, with 2 spell mana, you can represent Sky Splitters. And I don't quite remember if there are more in Champo's deck, but Sky Splitter is definitely the big one to have in hand here.
Yeah, it's huge in the defensive turns, but again, it's just fantastic. Sort of cheap combat spell to also protect your life on a big overwhelm turn, because it's 3 HP effectively being saved a lot of the time. The only issue obviously we see here with Shumpo is has got a lot of these combat tricks, is slowly starting to only have spells, which could end up being a little bit of a problem.
So the Gwen really needs to stay alive for Timmy. That is currently the hyper carry, let's call her. Not only healing the own Nexus, but also representing a lot of damage and a good target to put all of those combat tricks on. Champo elected to let the Innovative Blacksmith die on the previous turn. Very cautious with the Sky Splitter. Another consideration here might have been banking mana to play that Buried in Ice later on. We see Jax is already very close to leveling up. Even if he swings on his own next turn, he is probably going to get that level up through.
Yeah, so Shumpo had a number of options here in terms of what they wanted to do. They could have gone for the fish fight here and saved the Harsh Winds for a future turn when Hallowed gets a little bit bigger. They could, but instead they went for the Harsh Winds now. But they have a Sky Splitter backup in this line.
This is such a huge turn. I actually love this from Shampoo, banking that 2 spell mana to have this Harsh Winds plus Sky Splitter combo. But Timmy can invest a Might here or a Noxian Fervor, and I think that's exactly worth it and what Timmy should do. Take out that unit, saving the Might for later for a big overwhelm hit. But like we said earlier on, the Gwen is the hyper carry. She needs to stay alive, and that's exactly what Timmy did. Both players made perfect use of their mana and all of their combo tricks, but it's just the quick attack keyword that prevails here and gives Timmy the favorable trade.
Yeah, this is unfortunately a really kind of awkward turn here for Shobo. Has to go for the draw here to try and find anything for the future turns, but in this turn has to try and remove this Gwen here as soon as possible. The Jax level up is going to put his attack up to 4 here.
Yeah, but this is going to go through, right? There's no hate spike, there's no vengeance, there's no removal, no protection, nada. On Timmy's side, the second Foyer gets played, and you do have a lot of small ephemeral Hallows coming in. Kato could be a win condition here in a second, right? Buffing, like, you do still have the Might, so you can make use of that Hallowed buff on the Kato himself, but Shampoo keeps on developing and does tap under potential Buried in Ice mana. That's interesting, but also still has Fish Fight in hand.
Yes, the Glacial Saurian's huge here. That allows the draw. This is a lot of damage here, but again, Fish Fight can just remove Kato here.
Yeah, Kato has to die. Otherwise, you're putting yourself in a risky position unnecessarily.
Yeah, it's a lot of commitment in terms of mana. Kato is sitting at 5. So, most likely the worst outcome that Timmy can really do is like another 2-drop, like the Redeemed Prodigy or what we see here, the Rune Squire.
And Shampoo has a few options here. Could re-equip a weapon. I'm expecting the Saurian to be played on defense. I think Shampoo is already looking at lethal here, right? Shampoo is currently trying to map out, okay, how do I get a White Claw's Ferocity open attack lethal? I didn't quite math it out. It
so
might
you can
be
heal
possible
by equipping a weapon for 1. If you're Shampoo, I'm trying to think how much damage Timmy can represent here. There's a lot of Halloweds that have died.
Yeah.
5 of them here. So that's... And you're able to drag one of the units off to the side using the Rune Squire here too.
So both players having some tough decisions. For Timmy, it's mostly just which unit do I pull, which unit do I give Hallow to. I expect the Weaponsmith, the Blacksmith, to be pulled by the Challenger and one of the Ephemerals to get that Hallowed buff. Now for Shampoo, it's really tricky. Like, do I develop Glacial Saurian on defense? Overwhelm Fragment on the... Ooh, that is actually the absolute maximum damage that can be pushed. Outside of using Might, of course. But goes for the Jax removal and therefore trying to take out Shampoo's win condition. It's not that much damage represented, though. Shampoo could just let this go through.
Yeah, I was wondering if we just go for the Might this turn, but I guess not.
Yeah, I'm
still
on
worried
board.
about... what combat tricks is Shampoo presenting right now, right? So you've seen the 1 Harsh Winds. The 3 Sisters is your next worry.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's 2 of those still left in the deck.
Shampoo is low-key kind of happy that the Jax died because now the other one can be redeveloped while
having
the Scout Blacksmith can be turned into a Wild Claw, into an Alpha Wild Claw here by the Wild Claw's Ferocity. And that means 2 big attacks.
Yeah, it's a huge turn here for Shampoo. I think you just send it.
Yeah, and I don't think Timmy has anything in hand to stop that. Well, Quietus, actually. But
it's focus speed. You can't just stop the first.
That allows for some Quietus action. But Timmy does not go for it. Instead develops a blocker, and this should close out the game. I assume we just forge the Scout weapon. We turn this into an Alpha Wild Claw. And that means Timmy had a tiny little window of staying alive, staying in this game, but did not use that Quietus in time. To be honest, it probably would have just prolonged the inevitable anyway, because Timmy is just not having any scary units on his side of the
with
board.
Hallowed being very at 7, you didn't really need anything other than a unit plus Might to really start pressuring lethal. It was actually incredibly close with Rune Squire. I mean, you're probably losing the Rune Squire this turn, but if you could have kept it alive and pulled the Alpha Wildclaw off to the side, there was a potential open attack lethal type of scenario. But again, this is very sort of like nitpicky lines here.
Yeah, that's a very tough call to make as well. Like, of course, Timmy doesn't have that knowledge. I think Shampoo also still had Ornn mana up. I don't quite remember. So it's a very tough call to make for Timmy. It would have to be a soul read to go for that Quietus there. Did not go for it. Shampoo capitalizes, gets the win with the Ornn deck. That freeze turn did come in very clutch after all. Even though Shampoo did lose that Jax, or the Combat Cook on that turn, even though Timmy did get the better of the exchange that time, overall it just made sure that Shampoo outvalued Timmy in a way, because it did cost Timmy a lot of resources, cards in hand, and that means Timmy eventually ran out of steam, and Shampoo just found the window for lethal and knocked in the Nexus.
And we go into our next match here, and it is the discard aggro from Shampoo here, being played up against, again, the Gwen Riven list, and looking like a fairly good opening hand for both sides here.
Solid Urchin discarding the Chompers, giving an early challenger, which is probably not going to be sacrificed this early on. But yeah, good opening hands for both players. Currently, again, this favors Shampoo because Shampoo has access to draw, while Timmy would like to have one of the champions in hand already and continues to draw very low cost and low value cards. Generally good for the opening hand, but Timmy might run into a similar situation of running out of steam at some point soon, which I really don't want to see happen because I want to see the Teemo deck in action.
So, Opulent Foyer as well also is fantastic in this matchup. Will just generate a blocker when it's played on the defensive turn, and will generate attackers from there on. I remember when it used to. Do you remember the time when it used to just generate units all the time? Before it got nerfed? That was horrendous to deal with. Unfortunately, that's not the case anymore. It's round based, I believe.
Yeah, very justified nerf, and now it is much more fair. It's still an interesting card that does see play, but not as, well, annoying. We did see Shampoo shuffle in a Mystic Shot after some thought. So Shampoo currently valuing just board development and swarming and pressure over the potential removal option of Mystic Shot plus Electro Harpoon to remove a champion.
Yeah, there's a couple of options here. The Yodel Squire has to sort of generate the removal options, which is a bit unfortunate here. You'd really want to play the Summit Dredger here, this turn on 3 on curve, but doesn't really have anything to really throw away.
Nonetheless, Shampoo is kind of chilling here, does have effective removal options. Could go for an attack, probably not worth it because we would sacrifice a unit to the ephemeral 2-1 on Timmy's side. And here's exactly what I meant earlier on with Timmy's deck just not finding the value needed. Oh, actually it sacrifices the Chompers to push 6 early damage. Shampoo going pedal to the metal.
Yeah, I was going to say you wouldn't really use the Pytos there unless you were going to go for the attack. Because you don't want to give them the Hallowed. So it was very much a setup there for that attack, which is a bit, I guess, a bit of like a tell here from Shampoo on what they wanted to do.
Yeah. One thing I will say, though, is I'm a bit surprised that the Tiny Spear was equipped on the Octopus. Like, usually, I would agree that just spreading out power is the cleanest way to attack and spreading out power evenly. But knowing that your opponent plays fearsome units, I kind of would have liked one of those 2-1s be buffed to a 3-1 just to have cleaner blocks here. And now we are going to get punished by this. 3 Hallowed units already dead. We're going to tank 6. That hurts.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, you could have... Okay. You could have done that before the attack, right? You already had a prank. But I guess they wanted the attune from the Octopus. But I guess you could have waited a turn, right? But I guess this sets up a better open attack for 1 more damage.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure.
You take the 6, but you set up a better open. But in this line now, I'm a bit confused because now you don't set up the open. You're not doing an open.
Yeah,
I'm developing.
I'm with you on this. I think a few plays here looked a bit unorthodox. I'm not sure if it's some super deep Giga Brain strategy or some inaccuracies coming in from Shampoo, which I mean, it's also not the end of the world. Not like actually, no one can play perfectly all the time. But we did see the Squeaker generate a Professor von Mech, and that is absolutely huge because Champo's hand is also running out of steam and value. And here it is so nice to have some unit refill. Even though they are randomly generated, it is so good to just have some cards on the board. And on Timmy's side, just as they are about to run out of steam, the Gwen does get top decked and maybe can put them somewhat back into this game.
Yeah, so the Gwen is fantastic, but they're just going, nope, no need to go for the Gwen. The benefits of Gwen obviously would have been the healing from the snip, potentially stall out a little bit longer. But with 6 Hallowed and Kato and everything being on 1 HP, Shumpo's just looking for some removal here.
Yeah, and is that the Overwhelm fragment in the middle? I do believe so. Yeah. It does get put onto one of the ephemerals, and we will see a big attack. I am so surprised that this Overwhelm fragment, that's what was just a huge misplay,
I thought it was
right?
going to be on Shumpo, right? I mean, on Kato, right? Sorry, wrong order.
And I think both players realizing this
no,
shame
not like this
comes through. And we won't see the Teemo deck! No!
That's so unfortunate. The pressure must have gotten to them.
Yeah, we just mentioned it. We just mentioned inaccuracies on Champo's side, and then we see a big misplay, unfortunately, by Timmy.
That's not how you want to end your world's run. I feel so bad for Timmy there.
Yeah, same.
They know what they did. Yeah, it was. Yeah, with the Kato having like 10 plus attack and 2 units, having overwhelm. There was nothing stopping it. And yeah, I don't know what to say. It's genuinely just heartbreaking for Timmy because they had that match in the bag potentially to even out to 1-1. And we're gonna have to move on to our favorite Sugon the Easy here up against Never Walk Alone.
Yep, I am very excited to see Hash, aka Sugon the Easy face up the Heimer Nora. Wait, no, it's Heimer Jace again, right? It's the deck that we previously saw. The hipster Heimer Jace pull with the nerfed Hextech handlers. Never Walk Alone seems to still be liking the odds here, but no removal for this level Jinx. So for Hash, this could generate some serious value and some serious Nexus burn. The good thing is that like the Nexus, the Jinx rockets line up so incredibly well with Heimerdinger's bots. All of them still get removed because the Hextech handler does not buff HP anymore.
Yeah, it's the nerf is actually kind of crucial here because I mean, the other thing is to note is there isn't actually removal here for Jinx on the side of Never Walk Alone. So this Jinx is just gonna steamroll a little bit here in the next turn and just go wide, keep generating rockets hopefully, and make it very difficult for Never Walk Alone.
Mm-hmm. We see Sugandes trying to refill the board. Is going to be able to empty the hand this turn, but no mana left for a Jinx Rocket. Also, Never Walk Alone did not give the opportunity of a board wipe here. It's hacks in with these 2 Hextech handlers, realizing that right now, this Sugon the Easy cannot get any good blocks going. But this, like, the biggest issue for Never Walk Alone right now is not having removal for the Jinx, and Hash is just gonna get more board refill than Never Walk Alone here.
Yeah, Sugo D's is going to be able to get another rocket here too as well this turn.
Big Nexus hit, and that should be it, right? Electro Harpoon is going to come down. The hand can be emptied very easily, and the Super Mega Death Rocket should spell disaster here for Never Walk Alone's Nexus. I don't really see how they can stay in this. Let's see if Sugon the Easy can find the lethal line here. Electro Harpoon gets put on the Heimerdingers and damages the Nexus at the same time. And the Super Mega Death Rocket is generated. And that should be it.
Yes, we see again Never Walk Alone, unfortunately not winning that match. And we see Hash taking it here.
Okay, so it's 1 apiece for Shugondis and Never Walk Alone. And the last matchup left is, I would say one that should very much favor the Heimerdinger deck. We are going to see another red Gwen, so Riven Gwen Noxus, against a deck that runs a bunch of Vengeances and Hexpliterators.
Yeah, we see Sue John D Easy again here against Never Walk Alone for the top 8 position here. Again, the positions in this tournament don't matter. They're all playing to get into that grand finals. This is basically high stakes, single best of 3s all the way, and it's looking very favorable here for Never Walk Alone. Miss Call, probably don't want to keep that in your hand in the opening hand. You probably don't want Heimerdinger. We're going to see what. Yeah, okay. Unfortunately, I think that's what they got from the mulligan.
Yeah, that looks like a post-mulligan hand. Forge Chief being picked up is very useful here. In like when facing such an aggro/combo type of deck, does get met by Quietus right away. Sugandis has some pretty good development options here with Rune Squire? No, Rune Challenger guy, and Riven coming up very soon. Also does pick up a Prodigy. Could go for some Hallowed unit generation right away. Not the easiest choice to make, but I do think we will see some Hallowed generation come in. No, it is pass end round.
Yeah, I mean, there is the Vengeance, one of the key sort of 6 cast cards. Not only does it remove like the Riven or the Gwen, it sets up and starts to get that Jace level up online too.
And one thing that is absolutely huge to note here is that the Forge Chief did not regenerate its value, right? It did not create that spell mana, and that means that Neverwalk alone did not have Vengeance mana available to deal with Riven right away, and they had to waste 2 mana on turn 3 already. That really hurts, and that was some good foresight by Sugo just to remove that Forge Chief before it can do anything with a Quietus.
Yeah, it's super unfortunate. The Jace, however, though, does get a nice clean removal here on the Riven, and the Quietus again going to remove the Prodigy here, just going to slow down the Hallowed generation, something Sugon is struggling with right now.
Hate Spike does answer the Quietus quite nicely, and it does take out a key unit on Neverwalk Alone's side, but that also means there's not going to be any good way to deal with Heimerdinger later on. Neverwalk Alone also banking some spell mana, having that Vengeance available for that Gwen that will eventually come down.
Yeah, one thing to note is they got the Tough Husk. There was the option of potentially hitting something like a Spell Shield, which would have been disastrous here for Neverwalk Alone.
Yeah, and in other scenarios, Tough would have been really good if Neverwalk Alone's hand would be more like Aftershock plus Mystic Shot, something like that. But the Vengeance can just take care of this so cleanly, and I do expect to see this very soon. The only question is the Forge Chief going to get played first?
Probably, right? Because it'll have to get pulled, right? Or it denies 2 damage at most, just playing it.
Could also be Quietus instead, but that does run into the threat of Elixir of Wrath. It is a one-off, I think, though. That's probably the consideration here on Neverwalk Alone's side right now. Because you don't know if your Quietus is going to get value later on anymore, just because you already cleared out most of the small attackers on Sugo's side.
It's not just that, it's technically Mark of the Isles too, potentially in the deck that Neverwalk Alone has to play around.
True, and does go for the Quietus, is going to force an answer, and I do expect an Elixir of Wrath to come down here. So this is actually favorable for Sugon Diaz. So still a significant attack coming through, even though I do expect Gwen to get Vengeance. I think Neverwalk Alone is considering letting this go through and just developing Heimerdinger afterwards. Playing with fire here, the question is, are you still at a comfortable Nexus HP? Are you really not afraid of Mites and Fervors and any other burn options? Neverwalk Alone seems to think so and goes for the riskier line of play.
So I'm having a quick look at the burn option. So there's 3 triple enrage fire splitter, which is very common in the list, but there's 2 Noxian Fervors in this list by Sugon.
Okay. So all of these decks are slightly differently built, but they all still follow the same game plan. It's just like it does make it different what to play around and what not to play around depending on what frequencies your opponents have these crucial burn cards. Hex Bliterator is about to be used, stopping this Gwen from level up, who's currently at 5 out of 10. The good thing for Neverwalk Alone is that another elusive turret is going to get generated. The bad thing is Sugon Diaz could answer with Thread the Needle, but is going to go for Gwen redevelopment instead. Then again, Neverwalk Alone still has answers.
Yeah, the other Vengeance puts Neverwalk Alone in a very, very stable position here. and the Ruination should anything untoward happen on the following other turns. The other option, I guess, the missed call here, not like ideal, not really going to be doing that much here. And Sugon is kind of just forced to just go kind of all in here a little bit, which will get punished very quickly.
Soul Harvest does get picked up. It's not a card you love to see in this matchup against a deck that plays like 10, 15 different attack buffs.
So Sugon can try to remove Heimer. The problem with trying to remove Heimer will be that Neverwalk Alone will be able to have 2 elusive turrets on the next attack, which is going to be incredibly scary.
Yeah, so Neverwalk Alone going for that riskier, but also more aggressive and offensive play, having generated big elusive attackers, trying to put Sugon on the timer here, and threatening to close out the game over a couple of attack turns as well. Heimerdinger is going to get pulled. That does scream like a Might setup.
Yes, but again, Vengeance is going to shut down most of this turn here. I guess the question is going to be how the Might, when do you commit the Might? Because there's been no Hallowed, right? So this is the thing, like, there's no Hallowed bonus that you're scared about here.
That is so unorthodox to see. It is a turn 7 attack, and Sugon still does not have any Hallowed buffs. No pre-commit coming through whatsoever.
This lack of pre-commit is also, I mean, Fervor you have an answer for. You can always Vengeance, so you're not that scared. You can wait to hold this Vengeance for a Fervor. But I guess you are scared of Fervor Might here. So if you try to pre-commit the Vengeance, you can get blown up by Fervor plus Might.
That is some high-quality rock, paper, scissoring, like mental rock, paper, scissoring coming through. So blocks get committed, Might does get played onto the Gwen threatening the lethal and will be met by a Vengeance. I would have been curious, like, Hash could have tried to just let this attack go through and not give Neverwalk Alone a spot for a Vengeance, and therefore not really give the turret generation. But of course,
this is Vengeance after the attack. But yeah, it would have lost 1 turret. So
it would have lost 1 turret and not died to lethal. Well, it's not quite lethal yet, unless the Soul Harvest will be played, which I expect to happen. Therefore, that was probably just one of those caster vision moments, like, because we can see the hand, this line of play pops up into our heads. Yeah, there was maybe an opportunity for Hash to stay alive a bit longer here, but I can't really blame them for going for the finish here, just being met by the perfect answers on Neverwalk Alone's side. And this Heimer J stack will prevail. And unfortunately, we have to say goodbye to another one of our fan favorites, Sugon D's.
Yeah, that is the brutality of this tournament. Congratulations to Neverwalk Alone for winning this, but unfortunately, that is the run end here for Sugondis for today. And for this year, most likely.
Yep. It was a wild card. Hash did go for a YOLO moment, kind of just trying to wing it and qualify in at that last moment. But at some point, the competition just gets so tough. Neverwalk Alone not letting any opportunities slip up and getting W's with this control lineup. That was also a tough lineup to face for Hash, I'm not gonna lie. Good run. Unfortunately, this is just this one tournament where a good run is not good enough. You need a great run, you need a perfect run, you need to make it all the way to the grand finals. Otherwise, you're going home empty-handedly.
Yep, that is unfortunately how this all plays out today. Again, congratulations, Neverwalk Alone. You've got a couple more matches still left to go. Don't let up. Hopefully these players keep up the consistency we've been seeing throughout the day.
And we are about to see some more of that action of the round of 16. I'm not quite sure which game is going to follow up. We will see in a second. But I'm curious to see if we'll see more spicy deck lists. I think it might be Go next. It might be the player whose name looks like a coupon code. That's why we baptized that player as Coupon. Shout outs to Caster Gems for the creativity here.
I mean, don't credit me. I read it in somewhere else and just stole it, as you do as a card gamer, stealing deck codes.
NetDeck the name.
Yeah,
I love it.
Exactly.
Going up against Diogenes Enjoyer 1. The name seems somewhat familiar. I don't know if that was a rename or something, or if we saw that player perform well in tournaments earlier on. Does that ring a bell for you?
No, the name doesn't ring a bell for me. Could be another wild card that we've not seen yet. But looking at this current state of the board, even if this Jinx does come down, it's looking like the next attack is going to potentially end the game.
Yeah, but Jinx is the perfect card to pull off some miracle comebacks. Because if you also look at Diogenes' board...
I mean, you're going to have to throw the Jinx away here. You're going to have to block.
Do you though? You can attack. Just... Oh, damn. You don't have the action. You don't have the time.
Yeah,
and Entrancing Lure comes through, a card that we didn't see before. And that is going to mean 12 damage pushed by Diogenes and making perfect use of priority here. Not giving Coupon Code the opportunity to play that super mega death rocket. And Diogenes going for a smooth victory right here.
Yeah, and that is actually 2-1 to Diogenes Enjoyer. Up against Go. Unfortunately, that is the end for Go. We're going to be saying this all day. It is that point of the year where everyone is playing for those last couple of spots that are available for Worlds, and unfortunately, every match is just going to be us saying goodbye to players we've seen time and time again coming through. And the nature of the competitiveness of EMEA, unfortunately, means that we're going to lose a lot of fantastic players.
And that is the brutality of this tournament specifically. Usually we would be happy for the players at this point to already collect some Runeterra points, to already collect some prize money. In this specific tournament, it just doesn't matter. We mentioned it over and over again, but it cannot be understated. It is so crucial to reach the grand finals here to get one of those 2 World Championship slots. And there are only 8 players left who still have a chance. 2 of them are going to make it. We are going to be hopping into more action later on, but for now, a little break. Stay tuned. See you in a bit.